But even after that, this same thing happened again and again. Suddenly, she looked into the air and talked to someone, drew a strange-looking monster on her notebook, and said it was her friend. The monster was a very terrifying creature with 6 eyes and 6 limbs that looked as if...
You made me disgusted to see that, bro. What the... No. Yes, sir, I'm back, you guys. So, what's up? Yeah. One comment said that they said that. So, figure in my bed. I don't think so. My brother, he said it's not him. The freak. I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. Hold up. And later on though, back where I was at though, and let's get to it, bro. Yo, I forgot to say how y'all doing today, bro. Yes, bro. I got bored. I got bored because the network not working that much. Cause I got bored. I literally got bored. I just played Minecraft, that's it. And other games do not work. It's cause the network. So that sucks. So let's get back to the video, you guys, and let's get ready for it, bro. Yes, sir. Animation, bro. What's the punch for this, bro? Oh, should we put my paper right there, boy? Now look on that, you guys. Let's go. Yes, sir. Let's get to it, you guys. Alright. Yeah, put my phone up there. That'd be good, because right here is not that good, though. So let's get...
My name is Kyla. This story is about a piano that was in my elementary school. When I was a kid, my friends and I used to record random videos in my school's basement. Most of the time, the basement's lights were off because hardly anyone went there. And the reason was that that place was scary and sometimes smelled really bad. The basement was completely dark. We slowly walked in the basement with our phone lights on. I was nervous, but my friends were already walking ahead of me, so I just followed them. We were a group of 5, so I felt like I shouldn't be scared since I was with them. My friend Michael was in the front since he was the bravest and also the one recording on his phone. I was in the very back and holding onto my friend Kate's shirt. There was a room just beside the basement's wall, and inside of it was a grand piano. Nothing else, only the piano. We went inside that room first. We were all quiet, and you could only hear our heavy breathing as we walked through the basement. But we didn't hear anything. And then, out of nowhere, Michael said, "Boring." It took us around 3 minutes to reach the end of the basement. Michael put his phone back in his pocket, and we all started walking back in the long basement. We finally returned to the main gate of our school and sat on a bench. Everyone was focused on Michael as he pulled out his phone and started playing the recording. It was quiet at first, and then all that could be heard were our whispers as we tried to figure out whether or not we should continue with the recording. And then all of our eyes widened when we heard a sound coming from what seemed like just beside the basement. We couldn't believe what we just heard, so we paused the video, rewinded it, and played it again. The sound came from the grand piano. It was playing a creepy song, and at that moment, Michael almost dropped his phone. We were all shocked and scared. We didn't say anything for a while. I'm 100% positive that we didn't hear that piano playing as we walked through the basement. It was definitely quiet. And the scariest thing was that the piano was still playing when Michael said, "Boring." The recording was around 3 minutes long, and when the recording was done playing, we were all speechless. This was many years ago, but to this day, I still don't have an explanation.
Okay. I would definitely be terrified if something plays, some piano or a song like that, bro. I would just rather tell them or my friend, if I already know my friend that ain't not gonna force that to go like the basement or anywhere, bro. I'd just rather run out of there, bro. I'd rather say boring, but I'd just rather say this: how the freak you did not hear the damn piano, bro? Whatever he said, boring. I didn't hear the damn piano. What the freak? It's just getting. I'm getting chills right here in my back, bro. Like that song just no. For that, bro. Jesus Christ.
For what happened. Maybe someone went to that room and played it, but if so, why couldn't we hear it while we were walking through the basement? We also didn't see anyone else down there. And why did we only hear it when we played the recording? I am still confused about that incident.
This happened in the middle of last year. At that time, I was at home with my boyfriend Dan, concentrated on what the TV screen was showing. So I was about to start making a romantic atmosphere. But then I heard a knock at the door. I got pretty pissed off as it interrupted, but got up anyway and opened the door. We lived with one of our friends, so at the moment, I thought it would be my friend. But to my surprise, it was a man around the same age as me. He looked a little bit tired and was forcing a smile on his face. He was all sweating, and his eyes were red as if from crying. But it wasn't my business to ask. "Oh, hello."
If y'all see that in your front door, what would you do, bro? If you if you let that damn creep in then your damn apartment or your house, bro. I would rather say no. I would rather say get the freak out of my property for that. Nah, I don't let no I don't let nobody in my house for that, bro. And second of all, you're gonna be done for that good little man. Let me say this. What the freak, bro? The way he smelled that, bro. I wanna, bro. If I see him,
The stranger said with the wide smile, taking his hand out for me to shake. "Hi," I said, looking at his hand and back at him. "Can I use your bathroom, please?" he asked, still having this huge smile plastered on his face. Before I could say anything, though, Dan came behind me and told the guy that, indeed, he could use the bathroom. The man went in there, and Dan and I just went back to the couch and waited for him. Then I heard some sounds, like water pouring in the bathtub. After 10 minutes, I slowly started to get curious, as he didn't come out yet. I told Dan that I should check on him, but he told me to wait a little bit more. So I just waited, and 20 minutes later, he didn't come out. There was just silence in the bathroom. After 30 minutes, well, Dan decided that he'd check the bathroom. However, having a bad feeling, I went along with him just to be sure that nothing happened to him. "Hey, is everything all right?" I knocked at the door at the bathroom, but there was no response. I repeated the actions, but this time I knocked louder and yelled. Dan told me to wait a little longer, but I refused. I pressed on the handle of the door, expecting it to be locked, but to my surprise, it wasn't. I couldn't believe what I saw in front of me. To my horror, there was blood splattered on the floor everywhere. and the bathtub was filled up with a red liquid, as well with a lifeless body in it. The smell of blood filled the bathroom, and I wondered how I couldn't smell that outside. I told Dan to call 911 while I went over to the body to check his pulse. But when I got closer to it, I noticed that a razor blade was shoved deep in his neck. He was just dead. After half an hour, the 911 arrived with the cops. They took his body and we had to give our report to the cops. To this day, I became more paranoid about a stranger. Especially, I'm positive that letting a stranger use your bathroom is not safe and just nonsense. So, don't let the stranger come in. Ever. This happened to me last summer. My best friend and I went to Ibiza for a week. To our hotel on the first day. We threw our bags in our room and drove our rented car to the nearest supermarket. On our way there, we talked about the hotel, which was located in the very old suburban part of the city. It was really dirty. It just had an overall weird vibe to it. My friend was really bummed out about it, but we agreed that it wasn't going to ruin our excitement for this trip. Later that night, around 3 a.m., after coming back from a club to the area where we stayed, we couldn't find our hotel. We were completely drunk and probably walked around the streets in circles. My friend laughed a lot, stopped, and then pointed at a tall garden fence. Through it, we saw the hotel building. It was right behind the garden, so without putting much thought into it, we tried to climb over the fence. My friend managed to succeed, but I fell and hurt my right leg quite a bit. He helped me up and we stood in the middle of a bunch of green bushes. "What the?" my friend murmured all of a sudden. I looked up and there were a bunch of tombstones. We were standing right between two walls, and at the end of the walls there was a small chapel. The door was wide open, and from a distance, we could see that it was full of lit up candles. I was about to ask my friend why the lights were on, but that drunk idiot suddenly started to laugh and walked toward the chapel with big, awkward steps. Due to my injured leg, I couldn't really catch up with him. I almost felt like puking, so I looked down for a moment, and when I looked up again, he was standing inside the chapel. I took a few more steps and stopped as I saw his face look completely gray. "What's wrong?" I asked, but he gave me no response. Suddenly, he raised his hand and signaled that I should back off and be quiet. He leaned his face a bit forward, as if he was trying to see something in the room. At that point, I was really scared, so I just took as many steps back as I could while still looking at him. Then, I heard something. The sound of footsteps, maybe 4 or 5 people, was directly in front of him. He immediately turned around and started to sprint as fast as he possibly could while yelling, "Run! Run! Go!" I could hear the footsteps getting closer and closer, and whoever was chasing me was yelling some words in Latin. My friend caught up to me just as I was about to climb the fence. He helped me out and gave me a push forward. The footsteps were still right behind us. However, when we hit the ground on the other side of the fence and looked back between the bars into the green bushes,
What was that punch like? Pop, pop, pop. It looked like he hit him in his face.
there was no one to be seen, no one to be heard. As frightened as we were, we glanced in every direction, looking for them, but there was nothing. We then got back on our feet and eventually went back to the hotel. Our legs were shivering. My friend entered the lobby first, and as I was just about to enter too, I looked back at the street we just came from and saw 5 figures standing in the darkness. They wore long black clothes and all stared directly at me. I got scared, so I immediately got in and went up to my room. Our hotel room was located on the 5th floor, so I looked down the window into the streets. but I couldn't see any of the figures. I remained extremely paranoid during the rest of our stay, but we never encountered anything similar. Even to this day, we haven't talked about the incident. This happened about 4 years ago, in December of 2015. Me and 5 of my friends have our own business editing photos and videos for social media content creators. And because of this, we tend to have a lot of spare time on our hands. We used to go on road trips to a local lake that has a few nice spots to camp at, and a ski resort. We usually went there on our days off. One week, the 6 of us finished all of our projects early, so we had a few days off. We decided to drive to the lake. I won't be using their real names for obvious reasons, so I'll call them Kevin, Steven, Brittany, Katie, and Josh.
Josh, there's a girl.
Katie and Brittany rode in Katie's old sports car, and Steven and I rode on our motorcycle.
Josh. You name her as a Josh, bro. We could just name her Kate or Game or something, whatever, bro. But Josh, that's a dude's name. What the? Oh, I think it is. No, I don't know. No, I just.
Usually, Kevin and Josh took Steven's Jeep. But on this trip, Josh had just bought a new Sprinter van, which the previous owner had converted into a 2-person camper. So Kevin decided to ride with Josh. When we arrived, we skied, had some really delicious camping food, and listened to Josh brag about his new van. It was a pretty normal trip. On the last day, we all packed up to head home. About 2 hours into the trip back home, we were a little hungry, so we stopped at a gas station to grab some snacks, which was kind of foolish. We were in there maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and the car's door was left open the whole time. When we came outside, we had a huge shock waiting for us. Josh's van was gone. There was a huge dent on the side of Katie's car, and another dent on the side of an old truck in the parking lot, which I assume belonged to an employee.
What?
We were so panicked at that moment, so we immediately called the police. But since we were a little off the grid, the police took 15 minutes to arrive, and by then, we knew the chances of them being able to find Josh's van was slim to none. The scariest thing about it was that Kevin brought his work laptop on the trip, and I knew that Kevin didn't have a password set up on it. We waited for another 2 or so hours while the police searched the area, but they couldn't find anything. They told us to go home, and they would contact us if they found the stolen van. Kevin and Josh rode with the girls in Katie's car, while Steven and I rode our motorcycles.
Who will just not forget to put their password in the computers like that, bro? I mean, bro, it's true. You keep forgetting about it. You don't need to put your password in there if you don't want to, but dude, put your damn password in, bro. Put your damn password in, bro. They might look at your stuff where you like.
Months during the remaining 3-hour trip home. Fast forward 2 or 3 weeks later, we received a frantic call from Josh.
Never mind.
He said that the police contacted him and that the van had been found. All 6 of us showed up to see the van, and the van had somehow been rolled on its side and was left in a ditch near the highway, about an hour from where it had been stolen. Once they got it out of the ditch and flipped it upright, the police let us look inside to see if we could salvage any personal items. Sure enough, Kevin's laptop was gone, along with a set of kitchen knives that Josh had used for making kebabs. The most disturbing thing, though, was that once we got the busted driver's side door open, we saw that both seats were stained a deep dark red in multiple places, and the dashboard had slash marks all over it. At that point, we were really afraid of the van. Josh let the police take the van for further inspection, but we never heard what happened to it, or who the blood belonged to.
True horror story about.
My name is Lewis, and I live in Switzerland. This story happened 5 years ago during the winter holidays. It was an icy cold day, and the snow was falling continuously, So we had to warm the house all day long with the firewood, putting it into the fireplace.
I seen this before. I didn't see the whole thing though. I just see Corey Kitchen reacted to that, and I got like didn't feel like watching it, and I went to Corey's video to I watched his video play Bandy the Dark Rival number 2 thing or that got on there, and then I just stopped watching scary videos, and then I see what happened to it. So
my dad told us all the time that we should take care of the firewood. However, for the next days, we didn't do anything but just played Nintendo. Eventually, we noticed late around 9 p.m. that we had run out of wood. Dad got angry. So, as a punishment, he sent me and my older sister to the local lumberjack who was famous in the area. His shop was located 1.5 kilometers away from our house. He was a really tall guy with a long beard and wore a black and white lumberjack shirt as a classic lumberjack. Anyway, at first he seemed very talkative. We ordered 2 bags full of wood, which were about 50 kilograms. He said, "Okay, hold on. It'll take about 15 minutes to cut and wrap everything." All of a sudden, my sister had to go to the restroom. He said that he would let her know where the toilet is, so she followed him. I was waiting for about 15 minutes, and then I noticed the place was silent. I saw neither my sister nor the man. I called my sister's name, but there was no answer. Then I got a message from my dad that if we bought the wood, then we should come home immediately. According to the local news, the police are looking for a serial killer in the village 50 kilometers from here. Dad also attached a picture, and unfortunately, he looked very similar to the lumberjack. My heart dropped. I wanted to scream, but then he came with the bag of wood suddenly. He was smiling, but I could feel that something was weird. He looked joyful. "Please, ask me where's your sister," he said and winked at me. "She's certainly not far away from you." Then I noticed the red stains on his shirt. I nervously opened a wood sack, and the pink hair clip of my sister came out. I was full of anger. I grabbed a wooden bag with all my strength and hit the man. He screamed and fell on the floor, and I pulled out my pocket knife and stabbed him. 2 or 3, many times. Suddenly, I heard a loud scream out of nowhere. "Stop, Louis!" It was my sister. "That was a prank!" She was crying. I couldn't think straight. My head was all messed up. What have I done? I killed the wrong guy. I dropped the knife and stared at his cold body. But then I recognized that I had no time. I knew that we had to get rid of this body quickly while we were still alone in the shop without employees or customers. So I quickly looked around and found a hidden room, which was locked. We kicked the door and pushed him inside. And we were about to turn on the light in the room to find a cover, but then what I found was a huge shock. The room was full of people who had been cut in several pieces, and the floor was covered with blood.
What?
The lumberjack was the real serial killer. We were so terrified that we quickly covered him with some fabric and then ran out of the shop. We ran home as fast as we could. My dad asked us what happened.
Stop recording for storage. Yeah.
Ah.
Like that happens.
My name is Melanie. This happened when I was 6 years old. In 1989, I lived in San Bernardino, California. One night, after watching my favorite TV show, I decided to sleep with my mom. I used to sleep alone, but somehow I went to her bed and she smiled at me. While I was sleeping with her, I had a dream that I was at a park. It was sunny, and there were a lot of big trees around. I was in the car, and my mom was standing on the corner of the sidewalk. I struggled to open the door, but it didn't open at all. As I was pounding on the back of the car window, crying for her to help me, she just stood there, smiling and waving to me. Then I woke up, crying hysterically. Mom also woke up and rubbed my back, asking what was wrong. But I couldn't bring myself to repeat the horrible dream. Nothing. I told her and fell back asleep without any more bad dreams that night. After a year, we moved to Las Vegas, and I was getting ready to turn 7 in a couple of weeks. My older brother, sister, and I went to the airport to visit my aunt who lives in Washington for a while. After finishing check-in, we went through security and got ready to board the plane. When I looked back at my mom, she was smiling and waving at me. It was the same way as in my dream. I couldn't dismiss the weird feeling during the flight. But despite the anxiety, we eventually arrived at my aunt's house peacefully. We were about to have a big party since my birthday was coming. And on my birthday, my mom called to greet me and said that she loves me. That was the last time I ever heard her speak. Everything was all right. I was so happy at the time. I was waiting for my mom to come over here and spend time with us. A few days later, my uncle told us to sit down in the living room, as he had something very important to tell us. I noticed that my older sister was sitting in the corner chair and was crying quietly. He proceeded to tell us that my mother was no longer with us. At first, I couldn't understand what he was saying. He then told us that she died from a car accident. There was nothing more devastating than that day. Everybody in the living room was crying with such piercing sadness. Now I've grown up, but I still have dreams of my mom smiling and waving at me. I hope this story urges whoever is watching this video to cherish your loved ones, because it could be the last day you see or speak to them.
Our new house was cursed. Wow.
My name is Gabby, and this story is my true experience. When I was 11 years old, my family and I moved to a big house in a tiny town.
Oh, very scary.
Our new house was located at the highest point, which was as his wife had just passed away due to cancer, and that the house was very precious to her, so she never wanted to sell it. Still, the owner said the house was too big and lonely for him, since all their kids were grown up and already moved to other cities. However, during the final part of the deal, he suddenly changed his mind and didn't want to sell the house. But it was too late. The owner stormed out of the office saying that it was his house and that we were going to regret it. Anyway, this was during the time my dad was sent overseas because he was in the military. So my mom, my older brother, and I had to live by ourselves for 6 months. During that time, we had really weird experiences. Sometimes we would wake up to the sound of a goat in our backyard. It would last the whole night. The next morning, we talked to the neighbors and asked if one of them had goats, but none of them did. So at first, we just decided to ignore the issue and leave it alone. Now, just for your information, our house design was kind of odd. Downstairs, we had my room, my brother's room, my soon-to-be-born sister's room, and a weird wide walkway that led to the backyard. And upstairs, we had a kitchen, living room, and my parents' room. The downstairs was underground, and the upstairs was technically the first floor. Anyway, one night, I decided to sleep with my mom, so I went upstairs with my brother. Later that night, we heard a sharp scream coming from downstairs. It sounded like it was my dad's voice screaming for help. He was calling all of our names. My mom rushed out of the room and was ready to run downstairs. All of a sudden, she stopped at the top of the staircase and looked at us with a weird expression on her face. But your dad is still in Colombia. How could he... And the next thing I saw was my mom abruptly falling down the stairs. That moment was so horrible. It was like someone pushed her backwards before she was able to resist. My brother called the police and I ran down the stairs to check my mom and see if she was okay. We struggled to bring her up the stairs, but we managed to make it to her room. When the police and ambulance arrived, they took my mom to a hospital and left 2 officers with us that night.
I dropped something. I got scared. He made that sound. Okay, yeah, that was the bottle I just dropped. So
I was crying the entire night, and we were so afraid. Due to falling down the stairs, Mom was injured, and unfortunately, we lost our new family member. The most chilling part was that they found large handprints on my mom's back, as if she was pushed by someone. Led to an investigation, but they had to leave the case open because no one was found in our house, other than the 3 of us. We all suffered and went through a hard time that year, especially my mom. She slid into depression. When she recovered, we moved the following year. However, more things happened throughout the year, but not as bad as the previous one. Just footsteps, broken plates, or similar stuff to that. We put that house on the market when we left, but no one has contacted us. One thing is for certain. I hope that we never have to go back to that creepy house again. I really, really don't want to go back.
Secret of Room.
It was late in the evening and I was driving on the highway. I was coming back home from my friend's party. I was so tired at that time, so I decided to check in at a hotel near the village. The hotel was not too big, seemed normal, but was kind of creepy. After finishing check to the hallway, as I was passing by the other doors, I heard a kid's giggling voice from the room number 20. I stopped walking. Then I noticed that the door on this room looked different from the others. The door looked very old and it had a big keyhole. And it was big enough to peek inside the room. I was actually curious about the inside, so I looked into the room. And there was a girl who was sitting on the bed with her face down to the floor. I couldn't see her face clearly because her hair was all covered. She was wearing a white dress like the 1990s style, and it looked dirty. I thought it was weird, but soon I just disregarded it. So I headed to my room, locked the door, and just passed out. The next morning, I was walking the hallway again. I didn't know why, but I instantly had this feeling that I wanted to look through that keyhole again in room 20. So I stopped in front of the door and looked through the hole. But this time, I couldn't hear any sound and see the girl, though. All I could see was a whole red color. I thought maybe she saw me yesterday, that I was looking through the hole. So she probably covered up the hole with a red cloth or something. I thought that was childish, but cute. So I smiled, stepped back, and headed to the counter. Before leaving, I asked the lady at the counter, "Hey, what's going on in that room 20? Why does the door look different and why that girl stays alone?" She stared at me for a while and then began to talk. "Oh, you mean the room number 20. There used to be a family who checked in that room when this hotel wasn't renovated before. The couple had a daughter and stayed in here for their vacation. But then, they killed their daughter in that room. And when the cops arrived, the couple killed themselves too. But the weirdest part about it was, after that, lots of our guests told the staff that they saw the same girl who was wandering the hallways. And they all said that the girl's eyes were too red, as just like she was shedding tears of blood. What she told me shocked me. My heart was pounding and I couldn't even speak anything. Then, what was that red thing? Was she looking at me through the door, just like I was watching her?
Oh my god.
That day, I saw him on one of my usual walks along the bridge. He was a tall,
Oh my god, that was good right there. That would be my dumber from that. Jesus Christ, that is creepy.
middle-aged man in a cheap-looking suit. I approached him carefully, not wanting to spook him. I asked, "Sir?" He turned around quickly with his face drenched in sweat. "Who are you?" he asked nervously. I answered with a smile. "I'm Mandy. You should move away from here. It's pretty dangerous," I said, pointing to the edge of the bridge where he was standing. "What are you doing here?" He looked at me for a few seconds before speaking again. "Oh, I come here often. It's quiet, so I like that." I smiled at him again. He then looked down at the water below. He also said that I really shouldn't be hanging out in a place like this. "Your parents must be worried about it." He sounded calmer, but wouldn't meet my eyes. I spoke softly. "Well, my parents know I'm here. They know I like to help people like you." He turned to me, and I looked at him without blinking. I knew that he wanted to jump. The look on his face changed to one of uneasiness. So he tried to say something, but nothing came out. "It will hurt like nothing's ever hurt before. And it's just a fall, but the aftermath is even worse." His eyes widened and he shouted, "Get out of here, kid. You don't even know what you're talking about." He sounded more alarmed than angered. I continued to look at him as he breathed heavily. Then I slowly pointed to the pictures and flowers attached to the railings just behind him. "Actually, I do." He looked in the direction I was pointing, taking a few seconds to process what he was seeing. He then turned around slowly to look at me, pure horror on his face. How can you?" At that moment, I knew I had saved him. At least for now. He stood there for a moment longer, frozen and unsure of what to do. Then he didn't say any words, simply turned around and ran as fast as he could. I dropped my shoulders and breathed a sigh of relief. I walked over to the railings and just sat there, looking at the pictures. "We miss you, Mandy," was written on a big card decorated with hearts and flowers right next to my yearbook photo. "Gone too soon," said another, surrounded by teddy bears, clothes, and lots of flowers. It all looked so pretty. My name is Mandy. I was 19 when I died.
Oh, that's sad. What? Oh my god. I can see why you're trying to help this dude be alive right there. Not to let this man to jump out of the bridge. So that's it's very convenient about that. Well, this dude said you don't even know what he thought about it. Just well, his face just like. That's good right there. That's good, bro. Oh, that's sad, bro. Here we are. Found this video and alright, it's just gonna start. Alright, what do we got? What's up? Okay.
One day, while looking for a part-time job, I saw a recruitment ad that was looking for an assistant for a YouTube channel. The salary was $200 a day. I was excited and applied right away, and asked my friend Matthew to come with me. A few days later, we decided to meet the YouTuber nearby. We got into his car and drove almost 2 hours to an abandoned factory in some remote area. When we arrived, there were other people there as well. They also came for the recruitment, and there were about 4 of them, and we exchanged greetings with one another. A moment later, the YouTuber walked over wearing a mask and holding axes in each hand. We watched him nervously, and he introduced himself as a YouTuber who shoots horror videos. He showed us his channel, but the number of subscribers was very low, less than 100. I wanted to know what this was all about, but I thought he was a person with a lot of money and just ignored it. but I should have noticed. He set up the camera and started explaining to us. I'm an axe murderer, and you guys will be murdered by me today. Don't touch your phone once the shooting starts. Don't go outside. Suddenly, the tone of his voice turned cold, and I got goosebumps. He said, "Now the night of the death begins." Immediately, he came running at breakneck speed and began slashing down a man frantically with an axe, and an ear-splitting scream shook the building. At that moment, my legs felt weak and almost fell down, and the screaming sound of others was ear-shattering. While I was shaking, Matthew, who was next to me, said, "Hey, we're done." People ran to the entrance of the abandoned factory and tried to open the door, but it was locked. People knocked on the door frantically asking for help, but no one was around. People took out their cell phones and tried to call the police, but every time they did, the man knocked them down with his axe. I started racking my brain like crazy. I had never been so focused in my life. If this continues, everyone in here will die within 10 minutes. In the end, there was only one way. It was to steal the man's axe. I said quietly to Matthew, "If we take the axe, then we win." Matthew cried, "Our heads will be split in two first." Looking at Matthew, I said, "Even if we stay still, we will die anyway. The two of us, let's seize his hands at the same time." In the meantime, the psycho was knocking down people with his axe in a flash. Several people were bleeding and moaning on the floor. At that time, a man attacked the psycho and the two started fighting. At that moment, I told Matthew, "Hold his left hand." Matthew and I ran frantically and grabbed the psycho's hands. Then he struggled like mad, and I managed to snatch away one axe from his hand. But Matthew missed his hand, and the psycho raised his axe and hit Matthew. "Ah!" Matthew's scream infuriated me, and I slammed the psycho's back with all my might with the axe. He groaned and fell to the floor. I continued to hit him with the axe with all my might, and he fell, bleeding, and never got up again. I gasped for breath and called the police, and when the police arrived shortly after, the scene was horrendous. 2 people died, and 2 were seriously injured. Matthew was seriously injured, and they were all taken away by an ambulance. The psycho was dead. The police checked on the camera he was filming, which vividly recorded scenes of people being murdered by an axe. The police were in great shock. I searched for his YouTube channel that the psycho had told me about. There were about 3 videos uploaded, but all of them were videos of him attacking many people with an axe. In the video, he was running with an axe, chasing people. Then the screen went black, only the dull sound of the axe hitting and people screaming. Then, at the end, the man appeared on the screen again, holding an axe stained with blood. If you're curious about the actual video, click on the link in the description. You can see the actual murder scene for $100. And I could see people lying down far away. When I entered the link, a strange website appeared with a number of actual videos uploaded. I informed the police about this, and they began to search for additional victims. I don't know what happened after that. Much time has passed, and Matthew and I are still friends, but he still shudders when he thinks of that day, and he still has a big scar on his shoulder.
This is the story of my 6-year-old daughter, Riley. She was a good girl, but one day she started acting strangely. One day at dawn, she suddenly looked out the window and started howling like a wolf. When I asked why, she said that there was a wolf spirit outside and she was talking with the wolf. "Mom, the wolf says that our house is where dead souls gather."
Oh, no.
I got goosebumps, but I just passed it over, thinking it wouldn't be a big deal. But even after that, this same thing happened again and again. Suddenly, she looked into the air and talked to someone, drew a strange-looking monster on her notebook, and said it was her friend. The monster was a very terrifying creature with 6 eyes and 6 limbs that looked as if...
You made me disgusted to see that, bro. What the... No. Really? What kind of frame you want that, bro? What the fuck? Never mind, just got to go over there. I see, I'm just kidding. Fucking sick. Really? That? Oh my god, if my little sister would see that, my god, I would have literally just her in the face.
were combined together. And it possibly could not have been drawn by a 6-year-old. I tried to scold her, and I tried to talk her out of it, but she never got better. One day, on my way to work, I told her that I would be coming in late because I need to work overtime. Then she said, "Mom, I have so many friends at home, so I'm not lonely." I ended up taking her to a psychiatrist, but even the doctor couldn't figure out exactly why she was behaving like this. Then one day, she suddenly handed me some bread and asked me to eat it. The moment I picked up the bread and put it in my mouth, I recognized that something red was all over the bread. I asked in surprise, "Sweetie, what is this?" She said, "It's hamster blood. Kevin told me to give it to you." My heart sank, and I looked at the hamster cage in her room and found...
You're disgusting, bro. For his sake, bro.
So shocked and angry, so I grabbed her and yelled, "Who is Kevin? Why are you doing this?" I yelled at the top of my lungs, and she pointed to the wall next to me and said, "That's Kevin. His jaw is down to the ground and his mouth is 5 feet wide. He's looking at you and drooling, and his saliva is like jelly. And Kevin's mouth is full of dead animals and dead people because he can't digest anything since he has no organs. He says he wants to eat you too." I got goosebumps, grabbed her hand, and ran out of the house right away. Then I got in the car and sped like crazy until I got to a Catholic church in the neighborhood. I frantically searched for the priest and explained everything without hesitation. Then the priest thought for a moment and said, "Your daughter has made friends with sinister spirits. Your daughter won't get hurt, but the people around her will be in danger. I will say my prayers for Riley." The priest held her and prayed the rosary for a long time, and she mocked the prayer or shouted it at the priest in an unknown language. I was really embarrassed and couldn't believe all this, but there was no other way, so I continued to visit the priest after that. After visiting the church dozens of times, surprisingly, Riley gradually came back to normal. She no longer stared into space, talked to herself, or did anything strange. I was so happy, and now my family could live a normal life. I didn't go to the church anymore, and after a few months like that, one day, Riley looked into the air again and shouted, "Mom, the priest is here!" I was surprised and asked her, "The priest? Why is he here?" Then Riley pointed into the air, and there was nothing she was pointing at, and she said with a bright smile, "Here he is in Kevin's mouth."
Oh my god. What? He ate a priest?
Summer, my best friend, whom we'll call Maria, and I hung out at this resort. We each had our own hotel room that we shared together. One night, when we were 11 years old, Maria suggested that we go ghost hunting. I didn't have a great feeling about it, so I said, "I don't really think we should go. Let's just stay inside and play games." But Maria insisted, saying, "Oh, come on, it'll be fun. I'll play with you every day this summer if you go with me." Stupidly, I agreed. And we put our clothes, grabbed flashlights, and all that stuff. We went to the convenience shop in the resort to get a few sodas, and then that's when I saw her. Behind the register stood the most terrifying woman I had ever seen. My face went pale, and then she disappeared. As we were walking out, Maria noticed my pale face and asked, "Why?" I told her everything, expecting her to be concerned, but to my surprise, she seemed happy. At that moment, I thought, what's wrong with this idiot? Nevertheless, she dragged me to the lobby to investigate. While I sat in the seat, already traumatized by the incident in the convenience store. As I was getting my phone from my purse, I thought it was ketchup from the buffet we had, so I shook it off. A few minutes later, I heard the most blood-curdling scream coming from the elevator. I don't think anyone else heard it since there was no one else around, and the night shift employee was fast asleep. It sounded like it was coming from the elevator hall. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to check it out. The screaming grew louder and louder, causing my eardrums to feel like they were bleeding. Opened one of the doors and found a musty-looking man in his 40s, holding a
Nope. I just heard something. Hold up, be back. I heard something. I think it's my mom. That scared. Yes, it is. Okay, that scared me. Alright. Hold on. Let me just. Yeah, let's get through this, guys.
knife to Maria's throat. In a panic, he grabbed me and whispered, "I have a thing for Japanese girls." I'm actually Korean, but that didn't matter. I bit him and kicked his crotch, freeing Maria from his grip. We quickly ran back to our room and called the resort security. Thankfully, the man was arrested, but we were left absolutely traumatized. I'm now 13, and I still wonder what would have happened if I hadn't heard Maria or found the right elevator.
You did.
It was a stormy night and it was heavily raining. I was returning home on my scooter when I heard people behind me shouting, and it seemed like they were stalking me. I could distinctly hear a female, and she sounded close. I tried not to let it bother me at first, but it was impossible. I shot a quick glance behind me, and I was being chased. There was a woman, and she was holding a knife, just a few meters behind me. She menacingly smiled at me, which gave me a jerk, and because of the rainfall, my scooter skidded, and I fell down on the wet asphalt. I turned on my flashlight quickly, and my stalker was still pursuing me. She saw my face from the flashlight and seemed alarmed, and then she ran off into the darkness. I scrambled to take a photo, but my shaky hands, filled with panic, mixed with the darkness, only got me a blurry shot of a blue sweater and the knife she was holding. The next day, I told my cousin about what happened. A look of horror came across his face. He told me that a girl had recently asked him out, but he declined, and she didn't take it well. The woman couldn't see my face clearly originally, and maybe that's why she ran after seeing my face finally lit up from the flashlight. What my friend said next shocked me. Apparently, this was the fourth incident of her mistakenly chasing someone else. I'm glad I survived that night and got away with only a few scratches. However, I can't stop thinking about the fate of whom she might try to attack next. I'm studying animation and property investment, and I work hard every day. I remember one summer evening in 2021 when I had finished my report and decided to go for a drive to relax. I drove outside the city and found myself on a road surrounded by a national park up north. It was quite dark, and without the car lights, visibility was poor, creating a somewhat eerie atmosphere. After a few minutes, I began to slow down as the road became more winding due to the mountainous terrain. It was during this time that I noticed a white figure in the middle of the road. Feeling startled, I stopped the car, and feeling a mix of fear and frustration, I exclaimed, "What the hell are you doing here, asshole?" However, upon closer inspection, I realized it was a crying girl in need of help. Not knowing how to handle the situation, especially involving a young girl, I allowed her to enter the car and sit in the passenger seat. She appeared frightened and requested that I drive her somewhere. As I continued driving, I didn't notice anyone behind the car. During the journey, I attempted to communicate with her and asked her where she wanted to go, but she seemed unable to understand. As I continued driving, I didn't notice anyone behind the car.
Oh, God damn it. Hold up, see.
To handle the situation, especially involving a young girl, I allowed her to enter the car and sit in the passenger seat. She appeared frightened and requested that I drive her somewhere. As I continued driving, I didn't notice anyone behind the car.
Yep. Is that a person?
Asked her where she wanted to go, but she seemed unable to understand or respond in English. She was a Caucasian girl, around 17 years old, dressed in a high school uniform. Despite my attempts to engage in conversation, she remained visibly anxious for about 30 minutes. At some point, she expressed her desire to call her mother, and I handed her my smartphone. However, she spoke in a language unfamiliar to me, which I assumed was her native tongue. For the remainder of the car ride, we did not exchange any more words. I contemplated contacting the police as the circumstances seemed suspicious. It was unusual for a young girl to be out alone at such a late hour. Additionally, I noticed that she was not wearing shoes and did not have a school bag, leading me to believe she may have been kidnapped. I decided to stop at a 24-hour gas station to buy some food for her. Before leaving the car, I quickly glanced inside to ensure she was all right. To my surprise, she was no longer there, leaving only some water or liquid on the left seat of my car. Despite the absence of any other vehicle at the gas station, it was baffling to wonder where she could have gone. I immediately contacted the police, and they thoroughly inspected my car. However, they were unable to provide any answers. Something strange caught my attention while checking my phone. I discovered a phone number. I called the number, hoping to reach the police. To my dismay, a woman on the other end cried and accused me of being a liar, insisting that I shouldn't call back. A week later, I received a phone call from the police with a chilling revelation. They informed me that a Greek immigrant family had lost their daughter, who had been kidnapped and murdered by her boyfriend 30 years ago. Astonishingly, the police mentioned that she was only 17 years old at the time of her death. This left me wondering about the girl I had encountered that night, someone who seemed so real but was apparently connected to a tragic incident from the past. I never saw her again.
What? Ex-girlfriend. Oh my god.
I had a girlfriend I dated 3 years ago. Her name was Sydney. But one day, she started to be so clingy towards me. She asked me hundreds of times every day if I love her, and I was so tired that I eventually dumped her. She then sent me one text message and moved to a city far away.
Take care, honey. Let's meet in 3 years.
Then she changed her phone number, and like that, I thought I'd never see her again. 3 years have already passed since then, and I was in love with a new woman. I became a recognized employee in my company, and everything was going well. I had completely forgotten about my ex-girlfriend until the date.
Hey, I'm fine with that. I got no girl. I'm fine with that. I'm single though. Come on. Don't you want to think that I'm like look good on there, bro? I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there, bro.
Came. One day, I heard a knock on the door, and when I opened the door, she was standing there. My ex, Sydney. I got goosebumps. How did she find my house? But what terrified me even more was her face. Her jaw was severely reshaped, making it look as if she had no jaw. Her nose was absolutely pointy, as if the implant was going to pierce out of her skin at any moment. Her eyes, forehead, cheeks, and all parts of her face reshaped abnormally. It was just like a scene from a horror movie. The only way I could recognize her was by the tattoo on her neck. It was a tattoo she got in the past that read,
Look at that chin, bro. What the? Look at that nose, bro. Bro, looks like a fuck, bro. Have y'all seen? Look at this face, bro. Looks like a damn man. And a big lip.
by my neck and shouted.
How do you like my face? Now do you love me?
Her jaw was crooked, and she seemed to be unable to pronounce words well. She stammered. I was so surprised that I asked her why the hell she is doing this, but she just kept repeating the same thing over and over again.
Now do you love me, or don't you love me?
Finally, I shoved her away and went into the house, and she kept knocking on the door for a long time. I ended up calling the police. It turned out that she had received over 100 illegal plastic surgeries since we broke up. She endlessly asked doctors for ridiculous, strange surgeries, and her face turned grotesque by getting surgery in an illegal way, after all. That's how she continued to come to my house and hover around in front of it. She shouted at me.
Why? Is it still not enough? Should I lift my nose more? Shall I enlarge my eyes more?
She screamed madly. After a while, she left a small note in front of my house, and the note said,
Please come to my place one last time. Then I will leave you forever.
I went to the address she wrote, and there was a small, shabby house.
That is
The front door was slightly open, and I peered through the door. Then I saw a silhouette of a woman standing in the living room. I opened the door, thinking it was her, and she shouted,
How do you like me now? Don't you think I'm beautiful? Love me now!
Look, let's go.
But the woman was not Sydney. It was a Barbie doll the size of a real woman. Sydney held the doll from behind and pretended to be the doll. I was startled, and then I saw that she was holding the doll's hand and holding a knife as well. She shouted as she ran over to me with the doll.
It's not the looks, it's the heart that matters!
She swung the knife at my chest, and I barely managed to escape and ran outside. I ran away like crazy and called the police. Later on, she was arrested by the police, and it turned out that she had been suffering from a very serious mental illness. What was even more shocking was that she had asked the plastic surgeon to transplant her heart into the body of a Barbie doll. When the doctor said no, she said to the doctor,
Then I'll bring you a man. So take out his heart and attach it to mine.
What? Haunted music room. What the hell?
When I was in 12th grade, I joined an a
That was
cappella
weird.
competition with 6 of my friends, 3 girls and 5 boys. It was 4:30 in the afternoon, and our mentor decided that we should go to the music room to practice our vocals since the competition would be the next day. We had been studying in that school for almost 2 years, but we had never entered that room before. As we entered the room, the first thing I noticed was the piano located near the door. It was quite old, as were the other guitars stored in the corner of the room. Andy, stop staring at the piano. It's an old piano. You won't be able to play it. He went to the piano and pressed the keys to prove that it wasn't making any sound. I just nodded at him and followed his orders during practice. We all blended so well.
I got her door.
His
Wait,
instructions.
is he recording?
An hour later, there was a beep from his phone. Guys, there's an emergency. I'll just have to go downstairs for a bit. Wait for me, don't touch anything, he instructed. We all nodded, and he left the room. Sitting on the floor, we started chatting about the strategies we would use for the competition. A few minutes later, my friend Eric said something unrelated. Damn, I need to pee bad, and ran towards the door, shouting, Don't leave me!
Don't leave
Before
me.
shutting it, we continued chatting, and the conversation became more interesting. I didn't even notice when Eric returned to the room. In the middle of our conversation, we all heard the piano playing. I became annoyed, thinking that one of them was playing it. Hey, stop it! Sir might kill us! Then we realized that the piano was broken and hadn't made any sound earlier. We looked at the piano, and it was playing on its own. We were all frozen in place, shaking to our core. I stood behind my other friend, trembling, and we all decided to exit through the door. My friend Eric was panicking so badly that he couldn't open the door at first. My other friend Trina took over and quickly opened the door. We ran downstairs to tell our mentor what had happened. Sir? The piano was playing on its own, I cried. He was in shock and decided to send us home to rest instead of continuing the practice. The next day, we found out that a nun had died in that room, and she was musically inclined. Our mentor joked that she was just trying to help us, but it wasn't a funny experience for us. We hadn't seen a nun playing, but witnessing a piano playing its keys was terrifying.
shit.
My name is Kushi Singha.
I hate you. I hate you. Alright, whoever you edited.
One day, I was returning from coaching classes, and as usual, people were crowded on the streets, and the hour of the day was also a busy one, probably 6 in the evening. I was really tired that day, so I decided to book a cab home for myself instead of taking the bus. It was a distance of about 21 miles between my home and class, and it took about 1.5 to 2 hours to reach home. While I was in the cab, suddenly I was shaken a bit and the car stopped just about a mile away from my home, but because it was so dark, it seemed to be a pretty long journey. So I decided to walk home as it was too late to take another vehicle. After walking for a few minutes, I realized that a girl, probably the same age as me, was sitting behind the bushes just nearby where I was standing. Out of curiosity, I asked the girl if she needed any kind of help, and then she gently lifted her head up and said in a low voice, "Thank you for your concern. Actually, I have hurt my leg while I was walking by the side. Could you please give me your handkerchief so that I can clean the wound?" I said, "Okay, but please tell me if you've told your family about this," to which she said, "Yes, I've contacted them and they'll be getting here any moment. But the wound is really hurting and I need to cover it as soon as possible." So I searched my bag, and as soon as I was about to give her my handkerchief, an old man came towards me, grabbed my arm, and immediately took me to the other side and said, "Hey kid, I was watching you for a few minutes. Who are you talking to over there?" Then I replied, "I was speaking to that girl over there to ask if she needed my help and was about to give her my hanky, but you grabbed my hand." And the next thing the man said to me left me in complete silence and with a deep horror inside of me. Listen, the girl which you were referring to was nowhere there. And I guess it was not a human, but the ghost of the girl who died 26 years ago in a road accident here. And it's good that you haven't given any of your belongings to her, because if you had, it would be a really big problem for you, like you can't even imagine. Now don't stop anywhere until you reach home. I was left shaken and out of my senses. I ran straight home as fast as I could. When I reached home...
Oh my god, I was too scared to not get ready for this, but hey, I don't care.
My mother opened the door and said, "Kushi, who's this girl with you? One of your friends?" Without even listening to what she said next, I came in and closed the door and went straight to my room. That night I couldn't sleep, so I tried to calm myself down. I fell asleep and ultimately woke up the next morning. I then realized I was lucky enough that I didn't give this girl my handkerchief, because if I had done so, she probably would have chased me. And the girl that accompanied me the previous night was the same girl I had encountered. I am really thankful to the old man for saving my life.
Thanks for that.
My nickname is S. I wanted to share my experience that I had 4 months ago in hopes of it getting animated. Your animations are totally great, and I'm a daily viewer of your channel. About 4 months ago, I was home as usual with my parents and siblings, and I was studying. I decided to take a shower after I was done, and so I did. When I was in the shower, my parents and my 2 siblings went to take our cat to the vet and forgot to tell me. I continued showering and didn't hear them leaving or anything, so I didn't know that they left. While I was in the shower, our power went out. I thought nothing of it since a week ago my mom said that there was a problem with the electricity and that she would get it fixed soon. I got out of the shower and went to the living room where me and my parents usually hang out and watch TV. I couldn't see much, but I clearly saw 4 figures sitting on the couch.
I was like, what?
I was talking to them and complaining about the electricity, and no one responded. I was hearing breathing sounds, so I was certain that they were actually there. I told my sister to get off the couch so I could sit, and still no answer. I got annoyed at how they were acting and decided to move her myself. But as soon as I touched that figure, it was air. I stopped for a second. I was shocked. I ran and got my phone and turned the flashlight on and saw that no one was home. I called my parents and they said they would be coming back home soon. That night when I went to my room, I saw my blanket on my bed had the shape of a human, as if someone was hiding under the blanket. I told my sister to stop playing and get out, but no answer. I got mad, and when I removed the blanket, no one was there. I kept trying to remake that shape, but the blanket was too soft to make that shape and stand like that. I'm still unsure who, or should I say what, those things were that night. And to this day, I can't find an explanation.
That's good.
A few days ago, somewhere in the house, I started to hear a faint scratching noise on the wall. As my house was in a remote forest, I searched the whole house to see if it was the sound of a wild animal, but I couldn't find a trace of an animal anywhere. And the sound was getting louder day by day. I was able to locate the source of the sound in 4 days, when, as usual, I was focusing on carpentry in the yard. Suddenly, the saw I was using broke apart, and so I headed to the basement, where I hadn't been for a long time, to get a spare saw. In the basement, I was rummaging through my dusty toolbox, shining my flashlight, and I heard the sound that had been bothering me for days, right behind me. I was so surprised that my whole body stiffened, and I quickly turned around to shine the flashlight towards where the sound was coming from. But nothing was there. I went up to the wall and listened with my ear against it, and to my surprise, the sound was coming from the wall at a very close distance. It was like the sound of something scratching the wall with a sharp tool, but it didn't sound like a wild animal, as it came in regular intervals. This situation, in which I had no idea what was behind the concrete wall, was so creepy and frightening that I couldn't stay home. So I quickly packed my stuff and got out and called the police. I hear a scratching noise in the walls of the basement storage room. Something is about to break out from the wall. Police said that it's probably a wild animal, and they said they couldn't respond if it was just noise. I had no choice but to leave the forest and spend the night at the nearest motel. The next day, I returned home, grudgingly, with fear. When I returned to the house after just 1 day, it was a mess, as if someone had broken in. The kitchen and the living room were all covered with mud, and the refrigerator was wide open, and all the food inside was gone. There were numerous footprints on the floor, which continued on to the basement. I took my gun out and carefully went down to the basement. To my surprise, there was a huge hole in the basement wall, and when I shined the flashlight at it, I couldn't see how deep it was. I called the police right away. After a while, they arrived and started searching the house. Many fingerprints were found in the house, but what was surprising was that all the fingerprints hadn't been registered, so even after checking, they couldn't be identified. One police officer said,
It's estimated that there have been a total of 8 intruders. But even if we tracked all the fingerprints, they haven't been registered. Besides, the shape of the fingerprints are quite unique.
Then the officer looked through the hole in the basement with a flashlight and said,
The depth of this hole cannot be measured at all, and it's too dangerous for a person to go inside for an investigation. We've never experienced this kind of situation before. It will take a bit to organize a search party. How about moving out first?
Having worked as a carpenter, cutting the trees in the forest all my life, I had nowhere to go other than this place. I was afraid, but I had no choice but to plug the hole and decided to continue living there. After the cops had gone, I was left alone in the house. I covered the hole with a wooden board, nailed it firmly, and locked the basement door. Who the hell were the 8 people who broke into my house that day? The house became silent as if nothing had happened, and no more sound was heard from the walls. For several days after that, I was startled even when I heard the slightest sound. But as time passed, the memories of the incident faded. A month later, when I returned home after going out to the woods to cut trees, I heard a strange noise from the basement. That sound was a sound I've never heard before, and it sounded like a snake. I pulled out my gun and carefully opened the basement door, when something suddenly came out and pounced on me, strangling me. It was a creepy creature with a bald head and skin, transparent enough to show all of its blood vessels. Its appearance was similar to that of a human. The creature was strangling and looking down at me, and it had a terrible appearance, with no black parts of the eyes. It wasn't long before several creatures began to surround me when I passed out. How long has it been? When I woke up from the pain of my back being chafed, I saw the creatures grabbing my legs and dragging me into the subterranean ground. They were making an eerie hissing sound, and their transparent bodies were glowing green in the dark. The narrow passage in the underground gradually widened large enough for an adult to stand up and walk. There were many creatures gathered together. They crawled towards me and started fondling me. The creatures lifted me up and went deeper into the tunnel, where I saw a creature sitting with its head hanging low. I noticed it was the frailest creature, even at a glance, with a wrinkled body and bent back. The creature slowly lifted its head and looked at me, and its eyes resembled human eyes because it had blurry black irises. It saw me, and it made strange noises. It began to speak in a strange language that I couldn't understand. Nana luga ani, yonamu, luga uri, kimaki, iya ani, munadu. What did you say? When I asked it, the creature started muttering incomprehensible words again, and the other creatures were watching us, holding their breath. I wondered if the language really even existed, so I took my phone out of my trouser pocket and turned on the voice translation app. But the translator didn't recognize the creature's words at all. So I turned on the recorder instead and recorded the creature's words. The creature, which was muttering unknown words, eventually made a hiss sound to the rest of the creatures. Then the creatures rushed to me and began to kneel down and bow. What is this? I was puzzled at this strange situation, and they brought a bunch of various insects, dead moles, and tree roots and handed them to me. It seemed like they were sharing their food. It was only then that I realized that the creatures had no intention to kill me, and I gestured to them that I would not eat the food they brought me. Then, as if the creatures understood my words, they backed away for a while, and then brought a creature that looked like a female and thrust her on me. The female creature hissed and clung to my body. I shook it off in astonishment. I was so scared to be in this situation, and I wanted to get out quickly. So I cried and begged of them to let me go back home. Then they began to lead me back down the tunnel where we came in. Walking through the long tunnel, relying on the green light emitted by the creatures in the pitch darkness, was very arduous. After many twists and turns, I was able to get out again through the hole in the basement of my house. They sent the female creature out of the hole as well, and the female creature hissed and crawled around quickly inside the basement. I jumped out of the basement and quickly locked the door. Then the female creature started pounding hard on the door from inside. I called the police and explained the situation, and shortly after, the police and the search party arrived. The police carefully opened the basement door, and at that moment, the creature jumped out and clung to me. I was so startled that I screamed, and when the police tried to remove the creature clung to me harder and bit my neck. As I screamed, holding my neck, the cops smashed the creature's head hard with a club and got it off of me. White smoke suddenly billowed from its transparent skin when it received sunlight. Soon, it burned black and died painfully on the spot. From that day on, I was investigated for a long period of time about what I had seen underground, and my house was frequented by many people involved. My house was surrounded by a police line. The corpse of the dead creature was autopsied, and it had organs resembling those of a human inside its translucent skin, but no lungs, and gill-like holes were pierced diagonally along the ribs. Experts speculated that they may have survived by breathing through the gills underground. In addition, they said that their eyesight was deteriorating, so they did not have irises and could barely identify objects by light. I submitted the file containing the voice of the creature recorded on my cell phone to the police, and numerous historians gathered to analyze the language. Surprisingly, it was not the language of the modern society, but the language of ancient North American Native Americans. And when translated, it meant, "You are our first ancestor. We hid into the ground to outlive the war and survived, generation after generation, for a very long time. If I die, there will be no one who has learned the language. Teach your language to these people. The creatures were natives who hid underground to escape from an unknown war about 3,000 years ago. Over that long period of time, their bodies had developed to suit the underground environment, and they've become creatures. If people found out of their existence, it could cause social ramifications, so the government strictly controlled them from appearing in the media. I also had to write a memorandum to not disclose all the facts. My wounds from the creature's bites have almost healed, as they were stitched up at the hospital and treated regularly, and the nightmare-like memories of the day gradually faded off as well. I looked at my neck in the mirror and sighed in relief. I took off my clothes to take a shower, and there were strange holes in my ribs. What the? Astonished, I got closer to the mirror, and surprisingly, the skin of some parts of my body had turned transparent, revealing blue blood vessels. I went straight to the hospital, and all the doctors in the hospital rushed over to see my body, and they were shocked. They said that the disease is a rare one that they have never seen before. That was when I realized that my body was slowly changing into a creature after I was bitten. After returning home, I hid in agony due to my appearance that was changing terribly. After a long time, I mustered up the courage to stand in front of the mirror and found that the black irises in my eyes had faded. In addition, as my skin had turned transparent, it felt unbearably prickly and painful when exposed to ultraviolet rays. Now my body could no longer cut trees or go outside to the yard to do carpentry. By intuition, I realized I could only survive by going into the hole in the basement. I broke through the sealed basement door and began drilling the hole the police had filled with concrete. After drilling through the concrete continuously for a week, I heard sounds of people outside the basement when I was finally able to squeeze my body into the hole.
Mr. Graham, it's the police. Please open the door. I came after receiving your medical records from the hospital. I heard your body is gradually changing. Are you all right?
I crawled into the hole, ignoring the cops shouting.
I'll probably say that's it. I'll probably say I'm gonna end here, but I'm gonna have to say one more review. That's it for that, you guys, because I might too.
At the age of 13, I wanted to become a successful supermodel like Kendall or Bella. It was a career that stood out the most to me, and I was extremely dedicated to achieving it. I talked to my parents about my future success plan. They supported me and had amazing feedback. I was eager to become a model, so I did something dumb and decided to apply myself to a modeling company. A week later, I received a call from a woman. I specifically remember what she said to me. "Hey, are you Sarah?" "My name is Saida." I correct her by saying, "It's Saida. Who is this?" She goes, "I wanted to contact you about the email I sent you. We're here to schedule a photo shoot." In surprise, I responded, "Oh, really? Ma'am, thank you so much." The lady replied, "Yes, honey, believe it. I've helped girls become very successful. We are located in Manhattan. Where I live, New York is close but expensive." She claimed, "I'm sure your mom would understand that this is a wonderful opportunity." I was worried about how my parents would react, but excited. The next day, I brought it up to my dad, and he said, "Saida, who was this person? Did you reveal your personal information to a stranger? You can't do that. You're going to get hurt," he screamed at the top of his lungs. Later, apologized for yelling and stating, "I just don't want you getting hurt." I had made a dumb decision. I was naive, impulsive, and impatient. That same month, I watched a video on this lady's website. It was about a young woman named Kara Nichols. She was 18 and had a passion for modeling, and later joined some random Craigslist modeling app. A supposed photographer sent her an email wanting to meet up. The photos taken of Kara are the only evidence she was seen alive. Her family is still grieving. This lady has been missing since 2012. Later, I found out the modeling company I applied to wasn't legit and was a scam. I also clearly remember the woman replying with, "To this day, it still sends shivers down my spine. Well, we're not an agency. We just pick out girls we think are a fit for us, so we just want you." At first, I thought that was a little suspicious. Thank God my parents didn't let me go. A little suspicious. Thank God my parents didn't let me go.
Okay, my end here, you guys, and that was what end here, you guys, and how long was that? Oh my god, that's a long edit right there. Jesus Christ. See you on the next video. See you on the next video. I'm gonna play games now, and it's yeah, let's see. Oh, Jesus Christ. See you on the next video. Look how long is this, bro? Oh my god, dude. That's a long edit right there, you guys, and see you on the next video. And that is the scariest video I've seen. Listen, my hair doesn't look like that. By the way, I got long hair, by the way. Look at that. Okay, can you guys see? Oh, let me just turn on the light for a second. Can y'all see what the freak? Ah, yeah. Yep, got long hair now. I haven't cut my hair for like a week, you guys. Like, since they asked me that, do I want to cut hair? I said no, because I like, well, they haven't been using it for a week and this. Like, yeah. I look good on that. So, anyways, you got for what? Let me say this. I'm gonna end here and see you on the next video. Don't forget to hit the like button and turn on the notification and likes, comments if y'all. Oh, one comment says that in the top of the balcony my brother's sleeping. They said one comment said there was a shadow. It was my brother's foot or his hand. I think he said it wasn't him. He said. Then I'm gonna ask him again when he come back from school. So I asked him that he's a joker for that, and he's just keep repeating. Says it's not me trying to scare me, but I think he's lying. So I think it's him. I think it's him when he moved his arm or his hand. So it's him, you guys. He always sleep there. So the one who put in the comment, it was my brother sleep up there. So apparently he just sleeps like that, whatever. And see you on the next video for that. Love y'all, take care, and can't stop thinking about that video I just saw. Jesus Christ. It's giving me chills. I'm alone from here. Love y'all. Take care. Ganji. Love y'all, fans, and take care. And Genji X say I got a long edit to do. Jesus Christ. Freaking out, bro. See ya. What was that? Was I stopping the editing? Crap. Shit. I think it's done.